welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pone ain't drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message, hit the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi-Pone Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try enforcing some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 768 of the Trinity Force Podcast. Today is an especially exciting episode for us because we have a great guest on. We have Mark from the UCI University of California-Irvine Esports Program, and we're going to talk to him all about that. So, Mark, say hey.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. And then, of course, you know, I have to have a couple other people on. So we have Sean and we have B0mo. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm back.
Yes, you are back, B0mo. Yeah, how was your break? You were gone for a couple weeks or so, getting a mental refresh.
It was 3 weeks. I didn't last long, but I realized that I really do enjoy playing League. No matter no matter what I want to do, like I think in my free time I enjoy playing League. And yeah, I was doing other things mainly because I didn't want to spend all the time trying to keep improving, and so I'm kind of in a more content place with where I am in League and just maybe just dialing it down and how competitive I am and trying to get better and just mainly playing for fun, because at the end of the day, it's all about having fun.
It sure is. And we're, it's important to take those mental refreshes, and we're glad you're back. So, yeah, but cool. So, Mark, thanks for coming on. Before we, because I have a whole bunch of questions that we've all gone through and figured out a bunch of stuff we want to talk about. But first off, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, how you got into esports, and how you got into esports at UC Irvine specifically?
Yeah, happy to. I direct the Esports Program at UC Irvine. We started our program, opened our arena, and had athletes on campus September of 2016. So we're 5.5 years in. That makes us ancient in the world of college esports. Long story short, the summer of 2015, we saw an opportunity on campus between myself and some colleagues, staff. Faculty had already been teaching and researching games. Our club was thriving. They were winning. Our League of Legends club team had won back-to-back national championships before national championships were even awarded. And they're through a massive events, and we saw other schools starting offering scholarships. And so we started asking this audacious question of, would a major public research university tolerate the idea of giving scholarships and recruit students to play video games? And long story short, obviously we were successful and found the support that we needed both on campus and externally and in the community to do it. And so I view myself as a higher ed entrepreneur that loves games and esports, but I'm not maybe your traditional esports director that played at a high level or was coaching externally. I'm a higher education kind of administrator that kind of built this with Campus Coalition.
Gotcha. That's good to know. So you said that you're ancient in the world, or your program is ancient in the world of collegiate esports. Are most of them 2 to 3 years old? Because obviously esports as an industry isn't super old, and I didn't really hear about collegiate esports programs when I was looking at colleges going into when I started in 2014. I'm not aware if there were any, or if they were, it was not very well talked about. So how old are you compared to, most of the esports programs out there now?
Yeah, the first program started at Robert Morris University in Chicago in 2014. There was one that year, there were 4 the next year, and we joined in 2016. So we were probably within the first dozen programs. Now there's over 500 across the country, North America, that are what we call varsity, which means the university agrees like it exists and it gets to use the brand of the university. Some have coaches and scholarships in a space. But I would say there's at least 500 with kind of senior level university buy-in. And so, yeah, I'd say the majority have stood up in the last 2 or 3 years, probably right before COVID. And then obviously when things went virtual, there was a lot of interest because it was something you could do during the pandemic for sure.
Absolutely. That's really cool. So, obviously, you have a League of Legends team. But what other teams does your program have?
Right now we have League and Overwatch. We started with just League of Legends. We did pilot a Super Smash Ultimate team a few years ago, pre-COVID. Um, and right now we're kind of trying to think about what games we want to invest into long term. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of titles out there that a lot of young people are playing. I think Valorant's the one that we see every young person really interested in. But I think Rocket League's got a very strong ecosystem. Smash Ultimate's still a wonderful game, and we have a huge community in Southern California. So, um, yeah, we're always looking to play the most legitimate esports titles, and right now it's League and Overwatch. We are planning on piloting Valorant with like a small scholarship and a really small kind of coach staff this fall. We haven't talked a lot about that publicly, but that is in the plans too.
Gotcha.
That's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
that is super cool. Go
I
ahead,
did have a
B0mo.
question.
Mhm.
I know a lot of sports. Well, I guess we're just digging into it right now. A lot of sports in college kind of have like this bigger team environment, and at the end of the day, league is just a 5-person team. So does your school's varsity team just consist of those 5 players, or do you have multiple sets of like starters and like second, third stringers and like up and coming? I don't know if it's too in depth yet, but do you guys have like those quote unquote freshmen who are like what is it, red jerseyed or something like that in other sports where
Redshirted?
yeah, red shirt, where they're
Yeah.
technically not on the team and things like that?
You know, we have 10 league athletes, so a full
Okay.
varsity and JV roster. And so, yeah, we understand that having an elite league varsity team might require some development. There are often conflicts or player issues or academic issues or people go on vacation. So you may just need a sub or someone has car trouble one day. So yeah, having a backup at every role is really important. And I think most of the top teams these days are running at full 2 rosters. But yeah, it's both to have a scrim partner to try some weird, interesting stuff, and to develop talent and to have backups.
Gotcha.
Nice.
That's super cool, and it definitely makes sense that college players are some not known to be the most reliable sometimes. So it makes sense to have a backup for if something were to happen. Yeah, I'm just looking at because you were saying that you had a couple in different people at each position. I have on the
Hmm.
the screen the roster according to the LOL fandom page, and yeah, like I mean, they classify that you have 10, 11 people or something like that, and at least 1 or 2 in each lane. But yeah, I actually recognize one of the players I saw when I was watching a sneaky stream. He was in the same game as him, which I thought was pretty cool. I just recognized the name. I saw Zhao Danny was in one of those,
Mm,
but yeah,
awesome. Okay, good. Yeah, it does look up to date. Yeah, Zhao Danny's a freshman who just loves the game and came to UCI from Alabama to try out, like to walk on, and didn't make the team right in fall, um, uh, despite being like a GM mid laner, but was super hungry. And our JV mid laner kind of was like, you know, I'd rather focus on kind of school at the end of the year, and Zhao Danny's getting his shot now to play with JV.
that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
super cool. Yeah. Um, cool. So I guess just like getting into some of managing players and stuff like that. How does I guess for schedule and stuff, because ultimately at the end of the day, this is a program happening at an academic institution. So academics are equally as important, and it depends on who you talk to, but a lot of times just as important, at least, or sometimes more important. So how do you manage? How do you support players in their academics while also making sure that they dedicate enough time for the program for their needs?
That's a great question. So our program falls in student affairs, and I mentioned that because student affairs is the group on campus that's like really concerned about the student outside the classroom. So everything not academic, we're concerned about feeding you and giving you a place to live, clubs and activities, and supporting various communities. And so that's kind of the holistic lens that we use to look at our athletes. We tell people we ask for about 15 hours of official time commitment per week. And that's really low when you think about what pro scene looks like, or amateur teams look like. And so what that usually breaks down into is like 2 or 3 scrim blocks a week, um, we scrim against top amateur teams, top collegiate teams. Occasionally, we'll get an academy scrim, but we're competitive with all those teams. Um, our coach will do a one-on-one with every athlete to go over kind of personal goals, champion pools, maybe who we're playing, what we want to do against that strategy, review some of their gameplay, things they could do better, look for new things that we could experiment with in a scrim. Uh, we also have a team psychologist, so our athletes meet with a psychologist as a group to talk about. Generally, we present some topics, whether it be communication or giving, receiving critical feedback, dealing with conflict, all these things that gamers don't walk in the door with, time management skills. We present some topics to them with our team psychologist, and we also have smaller team discussions where we kind of work through challenges in a safe, productive space where people can call someone out for something they're really upset about or something they need to get off their chest. And so we have team psychologist time. We also have an exercise physiologist who's concerned with creating a personal fitness plan for everybody. So they're doing a weekly workout in the gym. We do fitness testing. So we'll benchmark you at the beginning of your year. We're going to test your heart strength, your muscle strength, your overall flexibility and fitness. And then we'll track that throughout the year, throughout workouts and our progress. So that's kind of the 15 hours we're requiring. I didn't mention solo queue, and so that's kind of something students are kind of in charge of on their own to find time for that. And it's not uncommon for them to put another 20 or 30 hours in there. But that's very flexible and depending on their schedule and academic work. But we certainly prioritize academics. We are tracking all of them very closely. Our average GPA is above the average UCI GPA. We have kids with 4.0s going to medical school. We also have some that need some attention to time management and kind of figuring out their academic load. So it's a across the board, but that's kind of how we balance our time.
That's super interesting that you guys. I'm not surprised that there's a school psychologist, which I think is great because there's increasing awareness of needing to be supportive of mental health. But the idea that you have an actual a physical trainer or whatever the words you used were, and had like a barometer of all sorts, or not a barometer, but you had like established their physical health at the beginning of the season or beginning of the year and track that throughout. That's really cool because I mean we've seen in the professional scene lots of big name players have to, or not necessarily lots of, but many have to stop playing games because of, weight related illnesses or carpal tunnel they're getting in their hands or back issues. Because when you're playing games, you're sitting in a chair for hours and hours a day. So it's important to be able to have strong enough muscles to support that. That's really cool that you guys do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we identified the issue early, and it's not like we invented like these solutions. We just saw like these are problems affecting our athletes, and so I feel like I cannot ask them to play video games at a high level and focus on that unless we're really addressing some of the life issues outside the game. So we have a really great staff who is really focused on setting them up to succeed in game.
Gotcha.
I think that's really cool because I think the pro scene is also trying to trend towards a healthier lifestyle to kind of reflect performance within the game. And I think starting off at an earlier age or even before they even enter the pro scene at a collegiate level is a good foundation, I think. And it's definitely the right direction that esports is taking. So I think that's really cool that what you guys are doing right now.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I guess the next point that I had was, so you mentioned that there's, you have different scholarship opportunities and for different games and stuff. So um, I guess first off, how do you go about finding, like, okay, so I guess recruiting stuff, because that plays into scholarship. How do you find people that you want to offer scholarships to? How do people apply if they're interested? Or is it more like a recruitment like it is traditionally with, I played high school soccer and through varsity
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and I was never good enough to get scholarships. I knew that from the beginning. I enjoyed it. I was good, but I was never going to be playing on a collegiate team. So I never even reached out to scouts, but scouts never reached out to me. So how does that work in the esports space?
Yeah, we're still building that. I will say I'm going to break it into two different time periods. I'd say our first few years, we just lived off our first recruiting class. We announced our program. It was we got a lot of news, right? I put it on the landing page of the game. That we had all these major news articles covering. We're on the front page of ESPN. It was the number one trending topic on Facebook that afternoon. And so everybody heard about it. And so our first year, we got all these ex-pros that wanted to come to us, wanted to get a college degree. And so that was our roster for the first several years, is mostly former pros, former academy players, um, that filled out our team. And then as they started to graduate, they're like, oh my gosh, we need a strategy to like find more talent. And so post our inaugural class, we really ramped up efforts to be intentional about recruiting, because initially it was like, we don't need more players, we're set. Um, so right now we have a recruiting website on our website, so it gives you a little bit of information about our program and what have you. People can fill out our interest form. We look at it every week during our staff meeting to look at who's applied. So people have to opt into giving us their information. We don't typically scout like high school events. There aren't enough really to go after people, and we're really
Sure.
interested in people that want to go to UCI. We have this. We're in the sweet spot of elite education and elite esports. If you want to go pro, we're probably not the school that's going to grind enough to get you to pro. There are other schools that want to do that. If you don't want to work hard in class, we're probably not the right school for you. So yeah, people have to kind of opt into that. So once we've seen that you're interested, our coach will reach out. Usually it's a Discord message or call. Obviously, when we get your information, we know how good you are. We see your op.gg account. We can see your history, your rank. We want to see what teams you've played on before. And yeah, depending on your background, our need, your rank, your potential, we'll begin a conversation about recruiting. Um, to be an official recruit, I have to submit a little competitive resume to a couple of colleagues on campus. One's a faculty member, one's a staff member, and they have to verify your esports skill. There was a controversy, the Varsity Blues scandal a few years ago in athletics that made sure that we're not admitting random people into the university. So anyways, we approve, we validate their talent, and then the university is able to consider their esports skill in admissions. So essentially, if you meet the minimum requirements of the university and the school and the program you want to go into, you'll be admitted, and that commits us to then offer them a scholarship and a spot on the team. So historically, we offer just a few scholarships a year. We have 10 athletes. Not everyone graduates every year, so this year we have our biggest class ever. I think we have 4 athletes coming in with all kinds of former accolades and competitive experience and potential. So yeah, 4 is really big for us, and we're really excited for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'm showing on the screen the application process. Yeah, like you said, there's the recruitment interest form and all the information you just ran through. That's super cool. So one thing that I didn't think about ahead of time, but I just thought of was, so when you're recruiting people and you're looking at their op.gg and things like that, do you consider, or is it a thing to reach out to Riot to look at their account's disciplinary history, because that's something that you would want to consider for a team environment?
Good question. We did our first year, and honestly, like I think anytime you look into someone's history, often you're going to find some blemishes there. These days we don't do that. We do have a conversation. I mean, if they're banned, like then that's obviously an issue. Like we can see that pretty quickly if they're not able to play on their main account. No, but we have a conversation about our culture and make sure people know what they're signing up for. And when they choose to represent our university, we are opting into a relationship, and they need to, if they have had a spotty or toxic or hostile or whatever past, that needs to end. And if they're not comfortable ending that, then we are not the right place for them. And so we mentioned that during the recruiting process. Also, to kind of settle varsity JV, we have a trial process in the fall, so people can walk on, like Zhao Danny, like you mentioned earlier. He was a walk on. We didn't know he was coming. GM, mid laner. We have all kinds of GM, master, even challenger players that show up. We don't even know they're coming. So we have an opportunity from the tryout, and part of that tryout process is an interview where we make sure you know the academic rigor of the campus, the time management required, the time commitment we're asking, and certainly culture and our expectations. And honestly, we haven't had a 100% success rate of, if you had issues before, everyone's like, yeah, I'd rather be in a culture where I'm supported and my teammates aren't going to flame me, and I know that I'm going to be held to a high standard. We have 100% of our students that prefer that to whatever they were coming from, and so we're not scared away typically of kind of some checkered past, as long as we look them in the eye and we're in agreement that moving forward, they're going to operate in a productive, successful, yeah, good representative way.
I think that's also pretty cool too, because I think a lot of toxicity in game doesn't. Maybe it stems from the person itself, but I think it's more the anonymity that a lot of people have, and it's like there's really no punishment for being toxic. But once you're on on a team or any kind of like organized sporting team, a lot of that has to kind of go away. You maybe see some professional, even athletes who are kind of toxic, mainly because it's a lot ego related or things like that. But I think in general, a lot of these kids, well, they are kids, so a lot of these kids who are coming in maybe just don't understand how to um, communicate or interact with certain people, so it leads to being toxic. But I think actually letting them know in advance that this behavior won't be tolerated is kind of a good stance, and at the same time not faulting them for their history too.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'll say it took a few years, but once we had some cultural momentum, then the seniors and the juniors, they can enforce that culture too to the new players. And so it's not something that takes a lot of effort anymore, but you can't tolerate it at all. And if you do, and it kind of weaves its way into your program, you're going to be fighting uphill for a long time. It's taken years to kind of cultivate it, but now people are like, no, this is not that's not how you operate here. That's not a professional comment. That doesn't stand here, and we're going to move on.
That's super cool to hear, and some of that I'm sure comes with just maturity because we were all a lot more potentially prone to toxic. Like those of us who played video games in high school, like yeah, there's going to be like sometimes you're just going to get angry because you're going through puberty and like high school's going on, so something's going to happen. Like it would be it's almost impossible to find a league player who hasn't had at some point at least like a temporary ban,
For
whether it's for
sure.
leaving games or whatever. Like I remember I had a account that was permabanned when I was 14, and it totally makes sense. It was toxicity. Like I totally get it. But I realized like, oh, okay, that's not how like someone conducts themselves, and then
Hmm.
they kind of grew from it. So that totally makes sense to not weigh in their disciplinary like account
Yeah.
history too much. Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say on this is like we have like a lot of staff around him. Our coach Hermes is a phenomenal human and ambassador, and you can't have a 19-year-old coach like trying to lead a group of peers. You need someone that is going to be the mature adult in the room. So and it's not just David, and so David's real Hermes' real name is David, but we have wonderful other support staff who mentor and advise, and all these touch points where it's really a village that reinforces the culture, and so yeah, it has not been an issue for us for several years.
Gotcha. That's great to hear. Yeah. Um, So, how did COVID affect your program? I mean, I know that you said there was more interest in it, but so then how did you, because I'm sure that there was in-person meetings that were happening and those were maybe not as available, or just how did the whole COVID, when it happened, and how has it continued to affect your program if there are still lingering effects?
I mean, I would say COVID overall sucked. I mean, we have this beautiful facility, this beautiful arena. Like our athletes were used to playing shoulder to shoulder and doing physical workouts in person in the gym, social activities. A lot of the structure we have built for our program relies on this in-person engagement. And so obviously that went away. But our obviously our scrims are online. Our coaches are remote. So much of our stuff just happened like seamlessly. Like we just kept playing, kept competing, kept doing all the same stuff. But all those in-person touch points are so vital to like the mental health of your athletes and your program. So that went away. Also, our program, uh, we initially started our program as a self-supporting unit. We didn't get any money from campus, so we built this arena that made money. People paid to play in our land center. That totally got shut off during COVID, and so our budget became a really major kind of issue. Um, and so, anyways, coming out of COVID, we're back in person pretty much. We've de-densified the arena. There's less seats, but more space. People like that. The campus has saved us in terms of funding. So our two chief executives, the chancellor and the provost, they set up a meeting last summer, and we're like, hey, how's esports? And I'm like, well, esports are great. Video games are thriving, but our programs, we're going to be kind of limping along. And so they jumped in to save the day and provided some funding for a few years to kind of make sure that we weren't kind of receding or fading away. So yeah, I think COVID was really tough. And the other thing, being remote, while all like this pain was happening in the world, both medically and social justice wise, like my staff were just really, really like hurting. And like, what are we doing with video games when so much awful stuff's happening in the world? So, um, not being able to see each other and have a happy hour occasionally, celebrate birthdays, like celebrate milestones, like that was really crushing. But yes, esports were able to thrive and exist online, and a lot of new people became interested in what we were doing because everything else was pretty much stopped.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Gotcha.
You mentioned your arena that you guys have. Is that on campus or is that off site? And how big is that arena?
We got super lucky with our space. So that was kind of a part of our initial pitch was we had to build the space for us to exist. It is as good of a location as you could get. It's on our student center terrace on the main thoroughfare in our student center. It's across from the pub and the bookstore and all the restaurants. So it's easy to get to, easy to find. People are always walking by it. It's 3,500 square feet. If you walked in, there's 36 PCs that are open to public use. So you subscribe, you become a member of our program either for an hour or a month. It's $4 an hour or $30 for a month. We also have eight spots for our athletes. So our 21 athletes across League and Overwatch share those 8 spots. We have a community corner, which is mostly focused on console gaming. So a lot of Smash setups, both Melee and Ultimate. A little production area for our live stream and shoutcasting and broadcast. Small little semi-cube where I sit and my staff sit. And that's kind of what our space is.
That's
And do you
super
have like
cool.
audience seating as well?
We
Would
don't.
you, okay.
Not yet. But there's so many spots on campus that would work for that. Lecture halls and our basketball
Mhm.
arena and conference room. So yes, we'd have to set stuff up, but I think it's a little bit of a waste of space to have a bunch of chairs sitting there waiting for an esports competition. So
Mhm.
I'm not worried. When we want to host live events and tournaments with an audience, we certainly can.
Cool.
Gotcha. Um, so let me see. We went out of order in a lot of the questions that I had here. Okay, cool. So so since you're hosting a team that plays League of Legends, which is a Riot Games product here. Is there any sort of what relationship is there with Riot? Do you have any relationship with Riot, or are you strictly a consumer of their product? If you do you have to pay any like small licensing fee to have a team that goes on and uses their product, or like what's the relationship there with the company if there is one?
I've been very fortunate to have a pretty close relationship with them since we started the program. When we were expecting to create it, so before we even launched, before we announced it, we worked with them to kind of discuss how they could be supportive. Some was around media. They did help us with a tiny bit of money to help us make our ends meet our first year. Um, but I mean, there's lots of things they do to support us. So first of all, the relationship's wonderful. For the last several years, they've had this RSAA, the Riot Scholastic Association of America. It's their governing body of college esports. I sit on that, so I attend quarterly meetings meetings are all over the place, but I think we try to do like quarterly in-person meetings. So I've had a lot of on-site visits with them. I'm a huge League of Legends fan myself. I've been to many LCS games. So the relationship's very good. The other thing I'll say, there's no license fee to use anything. Everything they've done for college has been a resource injection from the company to colleges. I think that's how I perceive it. I think a lot of people perceive it the same way. Um, One of the cool things they do for our space and all collegiate spaces is they have a League Unlocked product. So if you come play League of Legends in our arena, you have access to all the champions, a lot of bonus skins. You accrue experience faster. So it's not a good place to play ARAMs if you don't know how to use every champion. But that's a cool product they do. So, anyways, the relationship with Riot's very productive. It's really nice to have the ability to reach out to someone to get a response if you have a question, comment, concern. And I don't know when I was going to show this, but they also, when we won a national championship in 2018, they made these cool rings for us. So I have a college esports championship ring that
That's
Riot
awesome.
made for us. So it's a really great relationship. And the last thing I'll say about them is they do a wonderful job supporting esports. I think a lot of companies have games that are competitive that don't think about the competitive players or the esports scene. And I think they have set the bar very high for lots of other people to look at.
Yeah, I pulled up their page and I'm just looking through, and actually the right at the top is, well, right after they have a logo of the RSAA, but right after that, then it's actually your team that was, hoisting the trophies, like right on the front
Mm-hmm.
page as I'm seeing it. So I wonder if if Google heard that I was saying it on my phone and put it into here and then showing that. I highly doubt that. But yeah, that you're right on there. And yeah, like I'm seeing the pillars are students first, long-term stability, competitive integrity, and their staff support. So I think that's really cool. I honestly, when I designed that question, I didn't actually expect there to be this much infrastructure to support, and that's, I think, fantastic.
Yeah, they have done a great job soliciting feedback from the collegiate scene, and now they've really expanded the board to include other voices from the high school scene. Scholastic is much bigger than just college, and obviously high schools are a big part of our ecosystem now. So they're doing I think, a wonderful job of engaging. I don't always agree with every decision or whatever they decide to do, but I'm very thankful to have input and to know that they are considering all the opinions that we're sharing.
So, you brought up high school, and that was one of the things I was going to bring up again later. So, um, what is like what is your does your program interact with any high school esports programs, or do they have to reach out? Like, how does that work? Because I know I was like, by the time I was out of high school, there still wasn't any esports, but my little brother did play in high school. On his He created, him and some friends created a League of Legends team, and they played and they won the state championship in Georgia, where I went to high school. So I would wonder, like, how do you guys interact with high school, if you can at all?
We do. I'll go back to my comment earlier about like our recruitment efforts. Like pre-COVID, we didn't really feel pressure to find new players. Challenger players just showed up on our campus to supplement the pro roster we had assembled. But it's totally different now. And the other thing I will say coming out of COVID is I think we have to re-earn our community engagement. Um, our arena was full all day, every day pre-COVID, and it's a little sleepy to come back. And so um, we have agreed as a staff to really focus on community building. And actually, we have an open job right now, full-time at UCI Esports to be help us build our community relationships. And we're going to define what our communities are. They are the UCI students, it's our clubs, it is the high school students in our region, probably all of Southern California. It's the national college esports community. It's our alumni. So we are going to go into community engagement and making sure that people feel involved and seen. So that is a huge focus for us. In terms of what high schools we work with, I've already reached out to all the Irvine high schools. Most of them have clubs. But we want them to have a jersey on the wall. We want them to have a UCI poster on the wall. We're looking to host some like some summer boot camps for teams, some local high schools to come in our arena over the summer and just play. So I'm trying to think, how can we inject energy and support to the community broadly, but certainly high school. And so, yeah, there are some really great high schools around us. I'll name a couple. Sunny Hills High School has been a powerhouse over the years. Same with Troy High School. They just form these really high-functioning, successful teams. And so those are some of the ones, in addition to the Irvine high schools like Portola and Irvine High and Woodbridge, who have turned out academy players and former pros. So there's so much talent in our area, and it makes so much sense for every high school teacher who runs an esports club to know exactly how to reach us. Find if they have an idea of way that we can be supportive of them. We certainly want to. So it's a renewed focus. I'll say we haven't been great historically, but we will be.
Gotcha. That's super cool. That's really awesome that you're going to be trying to host different events and stuff. I think, as a if I were in high school at the time, that would be something that I would be extremely interested in. So I'm sure you'll get a good turnout for that, or at least hopefully. And for the open position or so, yeah, we'll in the episode description of this that goes live, we'll post where people can find both the recruitment if they're potentially interested, as well as if that job is posted online, we'll post where
Yeah,
someone could find that as well.
I'll get you a link.
That's awesome. Yep. So this is that your program is and it's at an academic institution, and so being in the U.S. At public schools, state schools, there's diversity requirements, and diversity it interacts differently across different types of schools and stuff. But like, how does your program make a conscious effort to embrace diversity and meet the requirements that college sports have to meet as well?
Yeah, I'm happy you have this question on here. I would say like diversity is one of the biggest challenges and obstacles and hurdles that everyone is trying to figure out. yeah, women, underrepresented minorities are not well represented, specifically when you're looking at PC-based games like League and Overwatch and the stuff that I am giving money to folks to kind of go to school for. So it is a huge concern for campus. I'm going to go speak with the faculty committee in a couple weeks, and one of their updates they're wanting to know is like, where are we on diversity? It's a huge challenge. I will say esports do not have the same levers that traditional sports do yet, because Title IX requires schools to offer equal opportunities to both men and women. Title IX does not include esports at the moment. Esports is not a sport per them, per the U.S. Department of Education. That's how our legal counsel has reviewed it. I expect it to someday be included. So we are expecting requirements and hopefully the levers that come with it to do that. So we are not allowed to discriminate based on any protected category, gender being one of them, race, ethnicity, religion, all those things. And in California, we are also not allowed to create opportunities based on those. So you kind of have to operate in this space where you're not penalizing people for anything, but you cannot give anyone a leg up either. So I cannot throw a summer camp for just women. I cannot throw a tournament for just women. And so if I'm not throwing events, tournaments, promotions for people who we want to weave in, it's really hard to like pull a big lever and make a difference. So what are we doing? I'll say the thing, I mean, one is we're trying to talk about it a lot. One, we're saying it's a problem. We don't have a solution. We would like to have a solution. Two, when you see well, two elements are code of conduct. I mean, we don't tolerate hostility, harassment, toxicity, things like that, both in our arena. It's written to our scholarship agreement. And so we want our arena and our teams and our program to be a place where everyone feels welcomed, and it's clear what the expectations for conduct are. I think online hostility is one of the major drivers for kind of excluding everybody that's underrepresented, but specifically women. We're trying to be proactive there. We seek out great partners. NEkey.org is a wonderful group, really pushing for diversity, inclusion in esports. We just did a free-to-play game with a group called Game Hers. It's a group of people who are pushing for more representation of women in esports. We actually won an award from them a few years ago. Our staff has largely been women. And the last thing I'll say is when you see our program in print, in video, in whatever we are, you're going to see everybody represented, whether they earn a scholarship or not. We do have a lot of women in our arena. We have a lot of women on our student staff, our intern staff. So total amount of people getting paid in our program is probably like 40% women. But when you look on the stage, who's behind the mouse and the keyboard, it's still mostly men at this point. But I will give a big shout out for Safrona or Victoria Wynn. We have one Overwatch athlete who's been on our team for 3 years, crushes it academically, and has been a starter for our Overwatch team. So we have had success with one woman who's been able to break through all those barriers to make it where it is, but it's far from where it needs to be. And I think it is the most urgent issue, and it's also the hardest one to solve, because there isn't something I could just go do right now, which is a frustrating place to be because it doesn't lower the expectations from campus. Our campus wants to be a leader on diversity inclusion and be a model for people, and it's just hard to have a program like esports that doesn't meet our expectations yet.
Right, and
That's
even
pretty
if
cool.
you're trying to, like you said, there's not a lot of levers that you can flex. So like if you're, for example, a soccer team or a soccer institution, you can go out and give out some of that equipment, but you can't really give someone a computer and internet access and all of that. I mean, it's potentially possible, but it's way more expensive and just not anywhere near as feasible as just here's a $10 ball, here's $20 shoes, go ahead and play. Or some of these other, it's a lot cheaper and a lot and then there's also the outdoor spaces around for people to do that, to play those sorts of games. I get that there's not as many levers, but hopefully this will improve over time. I think that I feel like there's and I'm not, this doesn't come from any place in particular, that PC games are becoming more diverse because PC is just becoming like the more supreme sort of place to play games, as opposed to Xbox and PC, or Xbox and like PlayStation and I guess Nintendo Switch, but no one really does anything Nintendo Switch professionally at all, or even collegiately. But yeah, hopefully then it definitely gets better, for sure.
But I think the foundation is there, though. You did mention your arena having specific computers, so that maybe is a small lever, even though there's not a lot of availability in terms of seating. I guess maybe that is the start. I am pretty curious because you guys are renowned for having your esports team and being the start of a collegiate esports program. And I know in colleges, a lot of schools too, there's a lot of school spirit around specific sports and stuff. How has your guys' community on campus been with the integration of esports? I assume you broadcast some of the games that your team plays maybe around campus, whether it be in an arena or I would also even say like I wouldn't have minded like sitting down for lunch or something while a team plays and it's just on the TV while I'm having lunch and things like that. So how is the community's response or the school's response to the integration of your guys' esports program?
I will say I think there's a huge point of pride for everyone who's with UCI. It's very unique, and when you compare our university to who we consider peers, like we consider our UC sister schools peers, so UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, Santa Barbara, we are head and shoulders above them when it comes to our investment into esports at this point. And in California broadly, so on the West Coast. So we don't have geographic peers, we don't have academic peers that are doing this, and so I think people love that it's a special, unique thing about our campus. Our mascot's the anteater. We are like a nerdy campus, and so this kind of fits the campus culture of kind of a nerdy, geeky vibe, and everyone kind of leans into it. On a campus tour. So when you do a campus tour, every tour guide's like, there's the esports spot. I have a lot of colleagues on staff on campus who are so proud. Their kids are so proud they work at UC Irvine because we support and it like lean into video games. I will say we have yet to crack the egg in terms of getting a lot of people to watch our matches the way we want to. Um, Pre-COVID, we'd have 75, 100, 200 people watching our matches. It's been a lot lower since. So again, when I think about community engagement, we need to get it on the TVs in various places. But obviously our matches are fixed times. They're usually in the afternoons on weekends. So that's kind of a little bit of a challenge. No one's walking around campus on a Saturday at 4 p.m. So got to think about that. But making people feel like there's a need to watch. Obviously our teams are very good. So we're working overall, there's a lot of pride and excitement, enthusiasm that we exist, and so many people just walk into our arena, take pictures. We have to wash our windows almost every day because people are putting their fingers up on them and looking in before we open. So a lot of enthusiasm. It has translated to viewership yet, but we're on the case.
And so, if someone were to want to go and watch the games as they're being live viewed, where could they find those? Are those on Twitch, or where else would they be?
Yeah, we have a beautiful production. Very proud of our streams, twitch.tv/UCI Esports. That's where we broadcast all our regular season matches. A lot of third-party tournaments also. Sometimes there's rules around streaming those. So we're going to mention our League of Legends event soon, and we're not going to be able to stream those. So it's not going to be where it is. But um, yeah, we do stream most of our matches, and we have wonderful paid students behind the scenes doing production and in front of camera, play-by-play, color commentators that are doing great commentary for our matches. So very proud of what we produce there.
Gotcha. Yep. So, you brought up that there's an event coming up soon. Do you want to tell us what that is and why we should all be super hyped to check it out?
Yeah, absolutely. The College League of Legends Championships coming up for the first time since 2019. It'll be in person. UCI is one of the final 8 teams, and so it's been a long season. It started in January with regional conferences, led into if you were high enough in your region, you got put into a 32 team single elimination bracket, and if you won 2 more matches, you made it to the top 8. And so yeah, UCI is one of those final 8 teams. We'll be going to Riot Studios and the LCS studio to play live with the other 7 teams. Pretty awesome experience. Students do media, they do all the stuff. They're wearing makeup on stage. It's a really cool experience. And so um, we're going to roll deep. I have a list of about 20 students I'm going to buy tickets for. So the UCI cheering sections are going to be really awesome. And we're going to crown a national champion on June 12th, and hopefully it's UCI.
That's awesome. I'm definitely going to be watching that weekend or when it's going on. That sounds great.
Yeah, and I think Riot puts it on the LCS channel, so we'll get really good viewership. Like the last match we had, it was on the LCS channel. We got 6,000 people watching, which is pretty good for us.
Yeah, I went back. I actually went back and watched the VOD of it, and so yeah, there was lots of stuff going on in the chat, and the commentators are pretty good too. So we'll definitely link that in. That's super cool. So I mean, how do you expect? So I'm going to put you on the spot here. How do you expect to do in this? Do you think that it's a reasonable expectation that we'll see you, win one or two of these best of fives, or they're best of threes. Actually, the first one is I have the tournament up right here,
Yeah.
best of three, and then best of fives for the semifinal and final. So will you be lifting another trophy?
I'll give you the rundown right here from our perspective. So we played Bay State in our first match. They have been a thorn in our side this year. We are very competitive with them. We've gotten better every time, but I don't think we've beat them in a tournament match yet. So our first match is against like the one team that has had our number all season. But I think we have a totally legit shot at taking them down. If we were to win that game, I think we would play the winner of the weakest quarterfinal matchup. And so I would feel very favored. I think people would look at UCI, or whoever wins between UCI Base as a favorite to make the championship match. And the other side of the bracket, when it was released, featured some of the heaviest hitters in collegiate, Maryville, Winthrop, St. Thomas, Western. Those are all really, really good schools. So I'm really excited that we would only potentially have to play one of those schools. I think 3 of those 4 have a real chance at winning. So we've done well against both uh, St. Thomas and Winthrop. We've won both against both of them in semi kind of amateur tournaments. So we feel we can beat anybody, but it's going to be who's playing well, who's motivated. It's finals week for us, so we're going to be like balancing taking finals and finishing papers and all this grind. So we're going to put our best foot forward, but we think we have a shot. If we win the first match, I think we have a really good shot of having momentum and being able to take it all home.
That's really cool because if you do end up, or the winner of that match then faces the winner of Michigan State versus Converse, and I don't believe either of them were Pool 1 teams when I was looking at it.
I would say yeah, both of those would be ranked the lowest 2 teams in the tournament at this point by a wide margin.
Sure.
And so yeah, it sucks to be on the other side of the bracket with the Maryville and St. Thomas and Winthrop and Western, because all 4 of those schools are really, really strong.
Gotcha. And it looks like, as I'm just looking back, yeah, you guys have not dropped a game in the other 2 series. It's been 2-0, 2-0 against, that looks like Illinois State and St. Clair College, which I don't quite know where St. Clair is, but cool. So that's super cool, and I'm definitely going to be tuning in to check it out, and we'll post it in our Discord as well, so everyone can go and check this out. Because I wasn't aware that there was collegiate esports or collegiate League of Legends tournament. So that's so cool to see, because these are a lot of these players are going to be the potential people that LCS teams are going to be trying to recruit a lot of these good players to get in. And so we get to see an advanced screenshot of what the potential future players are going to look like, which just feels so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing is, it looks and feels just like a live match. Maybe it's spicier picks or more unique strats. Definitely bigger comeback potential in collegiate, but you're going to see LCS casters. It's a full production that Riot really rolls out for this. So it's a really wonderful experience for our students. They all get to meet all these other rivals from other schools, and just a very unique thing that doesn't happen in esports very often. So kudos to Riot for throwing a wonderful event. And speaking of the relationship, our advisory group was pushing really, really hard to make sure that they didn't cancel the live event early in the year when the COVID numbers were surging. And we kind of told them to hey, don't cancel it just yet. Let's see how things play out. And eventually numbers went down, comfort levels went up, restrictions went down, and now we're really excited for this beautiful live event, and couldn't be more thrilled. So definitely check it out.
I definitely will be. And as you're saying, spicier picks, from the one series that I did watch, which was against Illinois State, there was, I don't know which side played it, I don't remember, but there was an Ornn jungle, which is something that you don't see hardly ever in pros, and I don't see it in solo queue ever. So that was super cool to see. So you definitely get to see some spicier picks.
we punished that one pretty hard.
Yes, you did.
What was I gonna say? I will say this: I don't expect it in the tournament, but we have played Teemo in a competitive like championship match before. So watch for our top laner. I'll say Barrick can play anything, and all the confidence in the world, and he has pro aspirations too. So he's one of the players who could pull out something super spicy. That'll be really fun to watch.
Okay, well, there's a couple of Teemo aficionados in our community, so I'm definitely going to be letting them know so they check it out. There's one person I
Yeah.
know who has like over 1 million mastery points on just Teemo. Maybe it's like 2 million. So I'm sure, yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure he'll want to check it out for sure.
So we do have the quarterfinals and final. Well, I guess group stage, quarterfinals, semis, and finals coming up. But for the actual collegiate league, is it similar to pro league right now, where you have a set number of teams and then you play like a round robin type of style, or is it more kind of smaller tournaments that you guys play in and then get like a bigger break period in between these matches that you guys play?
That's a great question because it's changing. Historically, the last several years, including this year, it has been a Swiss format. So we have played in the West region, so maybe 50 schools on the West Coast. Not every school on the West Coast. Some have like they're part of a conference that partners with Riot, so they have like only 10 people in their conference. But for us, it's 50 schools and it's Swiss. So you win your first match, then you play against another team that's 1-0, and then you play against another team that's 2-0, and eventually, if you win at least five. I think you have to win at least 5 games. 5 out of 6 games, you qualify for playoffs. And if you go far enough in playoffs, you qualify for the top 32, and then you get to where we can be. But next year, they're going to make a really awesome change, which is going to, I think, greatly improve things. So they're going to, like, essentially cherry pick the top 32 teams from across the country and put us in our own league. And so instead of playing all these teams. I mean, we start the season with diamond matches where we're playing challenger, a 4 challenger and a grandmaster against silver and plat players. So we're gonna scrape off the top teams, and they will play. And so the good teams can get experience against each other right away, and losing won't punish you super hard right away. So I think it'll be way better. I think there will still be opportunities for those lower teams to qualify for the national championship. You don't get eliminated, but you won't have as many opportunities. And it's just a way to like really balance out the early part of the season. There's a ton of forfeits where people just don't show up because they know they're going to get stomped. And so it'll be, I think, a much better product, much more exciting, and it'll be a challenge to stay in that top 32, so you don't get relegated to a lower tier.
That's super cool that
That's
they're
pretty
having,
cool.
yeah, all of the relegation style like there is with
Mm-hmm.
different
Mhm.
sports, and how I think a lot of us wish that there was the actual pro scene still had relegations, because now it's all franchise. So there is, depending on what's going on, there's incentives to tank just like there is in American sports all over the place. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, with the threat from below that you might go down, that's what keeps a lot of programs honest. That's why I think that a lot of the European, the Premier League and the other soccer leagues over there, they really work, because even if you decide to just blow up your team, okay, we're going to go with all young players, they may not be as good, well, you're going to actually get punished for that. You're going to lose revenue and things like that, as that's how it works over there. So that's really cool that they're separating out the wheat from the chaff, or the cream of the crop, or whatever metaphor you want to use there.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Um, Cool. I mean, I think we ran through basically every one of these questions here, not in order, but overall, that's really cool. So, I don't know, Sean, do you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, or B0mo, anything else that's off of the list? Because we ran through it.
Sure, I'd like to hear your thoughts on North American pro play, actually, because there isn't exactly a lot of homegrown talent in there. If you watch pro play, you know it's a lot of Korean and European players make up most of the best teams. And with EG kind of winning the last split and going to MSI, currently they have JoJo and Danny, which are two of like the better homegrown talent we've seen in a long time, actually. So I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm a huge LCS fan, so I'm actually able to talk about this. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of MSI. Definitely not disappointed with EG right now, so that's good. Um, I, I don't know. It's hard to. I don't think it's a talent issue. I really don't. I will say if you look at the top Korean and LEC players that come here, like when they come to North America, we make them look really bad, right? I think they look mediocre on our teams. Like even if we had a all Korean or all LEC roster taking MSI, I don't think they would do all that well. Um, from my perspective, as someone who is from outside esports, learning about esports for 6 years, I feel that it's more the infrastructure, coaching, and cultural elements that are going into it. Obviously, solo queue also plays a big role. I don't think our solo queue is anywhere near what the other regions are, so they're not getting that experience. But um, I don't know. I don't think it's a lack of potential, a lack of talent. I think it's a lack of development, a lack of vision for players. Um, I don't know. I don't have a full answer for that, but I don't think it's the individual people behind the keyboards. I think it's a larger structural, organizational, cultural thing where we're not getting the most out of our athletes. We're not coaching them up in the right ways. We're not teaching them to be disciplined and focused and to work in the right ways. So that's my observation from where I sit, because I just see so many mistakes that I think traditional sports have solved that people make in esports. I'm like, why did you not know that? But then again, your coach is 17 years old and has never been on a team and doesn't have a mentor and doesn't know better. So that's kind of how I view it. Is the whole structure. I'm talking about general managers. I'm talking about owners. I'm talking about coaches. I want to look at those people and figure out where the gaps are there, because I think with the giant player base in North America, we could do a lot better.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. We might be digging a hole right now or going down a rabbit hole. But I was just thinking, a col- a lot of traditional sports, college is sort of the gateway to the pro scene, unless you're some unbelievably talented athlete who might be able to just go to. I guess the requirement now is freshman year. I think for most sports, you can't just go straight from high school anymore. And so you use college as a stepping stone into the pro scene. But there's this stigma in pro play that if you're above a certain age, you're too old to play, whether that be 22 to 25 kind of being maybe the lower end of the your career, especially with kids coming in 16, 17. And so with the development of collegiate esports, I wonder how that maybe in part plays with kind of this stigma that if you're too old, you can't play anymore. I'm wondering if maybe there's a different aspect in league that maybe we're not quite seeing. Maybe these older kids who are coming in to start playing at the start of their career after college might actually be better than younger kids because they've had kind of the developmental foundation um, to be on a team. Because you're pretty much just taking these solo queue stars right out of high school who maybe didn't have the best I guess interactions with people and bringing people up in a competitive team. And so you're kind of just sticking this person who doesn't have this experience onto a team and telling them, hey, go ahead and just do your thing. So maybe we're just getting too far into the weeds at this point. But that was a thought that I just had. It's like, how would that become bridged? Would a player or student you have at school who is really good and is considering going pro and a pro team is willing to pick him up, would you just let him go? Don't let him graduate and then he's just off to go play? Or is there a kind of like an innate responsibility of making sure that they have an education? Because we know a lot of the pro players' careers aren't that long right now, mainly it being due to a bunch of different factors, whether that's true or not. But the career of a pro player isn't that big. So do you prefer that students maybe don't go that route and actually try to finish their education and then try to pursue a pro career? Or if they're given the opportunity after freshman year, they should just drop school and go into the pro scene?
So you had a bunch of stuff in there. I'll answer a couple questions real quick off the bat. One, I don't think age is a hard barrier like people assume it is. I mean, you have Bjergsen, you have people that could keep playing. I think it's more that committing to a game like League of Legends really prevents you from living other parts of your life that you might want to explore, whether it's a relationship, a job, school, other things. You're like, do I want to keep grinding this game? I think that's the biggest reason people age out. They lose the motivation. Um, Secondly, talking about pathways, I will say I don't think college is the best way to go pro. I really don't. We don't let you play. You don't have enough time to play the game as many hours as you need to learn it as deeply as you should to go pro. Um, doesn't mean it's not a way to go pro. I think the skills and tools you will build while you're getting coached up certainly are hopeful. But I think the hours you can put in are really important if you are really focused on that. So the question they asked at the end was, what would I do if an athlete had the opportunity to go pro after freshman year? And I will say that is something that we're dealing with right now. Like that is a thing that could happen to us, and we expect students to take breaks here and there. Definitely on our league team this year. And I'll say our first year, we had a player named Youngbin. Maybe you're familiar with him. He had come to us from Team Liquid Academy. Team Liquid was the worst team in the LCS that year, and they poached him off my roster during playoffs. I was really not happy about it. I didn't know how to deal with it. Initially, I supported Youngbin. I was like, sure, if you want to go, I guess go. It was my first year. It was a really bad experience. He played one weekend, and then they brought in an AD carry you may have heard of. His name is Double Lift. And our athlete who left school, our starting mid laner, was then stuck in purgatory on Liquid for a while. So I was really unhappy about that situation. He was not treated professionally, and for someone they plucked out of college to replace him by Double Lift after a week was, I thought, really bad. So anyways, I complained to Riot. It was one of those relationship opportunities. I was like, look, if you want college to thrive, you cannot allow your worst LCS teams to go pluck kids out of college. That is a bad scenario. And so they actually wrote a rule in the LCS that said if you're on scholarship at a college, you cannot play on a LCS roster unless the school kind of clears you. Said, yes, you're good to go. I call it the Youngbin rule. And so we will not allow an athlete who is committed to us to leave midseason. We tell them in our interview, like, you are committing to the year. We're interviewing you in September, October. You're going to play for us through the rest of the season. That is what you're telling me. You are saying, yes, Mark, I will do that. And we're like, cool, then you're on the team. Obviously, we don't control them. They're not legally binded to us during that time, but we make sure they understand they're committing to us. Otherwise, we'd rather coach someone else up. And so we support them. And then after the season ends, if you want to go pro, if you want to take a year off, we will make sure you exit UCI gracefully. You are able to come back and just restart when you want. And that has happened for Overwatch. We have an athlete coming back after several years of kind of exploring the amateur scene. Trying to go pro, didn't quite make it. He's coming back. We have a league player or two that are interested in taking a gap year and exploring their professional opportunities. So I'm totally comfortable with that. I appreciate the communication that allows us to plan recruiting and make longer term plans. And so that's kind of how we handle it. I think that's very different at other schools that are like, if you get a pro opportunity, go, we'll sign the Riot form. And I'm like, no, you're not doing this to your teammates. You're not doing this to your school, your coaches. We have invested so much into you. So that's kind of how we look at it. But I think you'd probably get a lot of different answers if you asked other directors about this.
Yeah, that totally makes sense that you wouldn't want players to leave their teammates high and dry. Like, yes, they're potentially getting a better, and the potentially is the key word. They're potentially getting a better opportunity, but um, then it could all just blow
It's
up.
not
And
guaranteed.
exactly,
It's tough.
and it's blown up, and it has blown up in players' faces in the past, and that's really shitty that happened. But I mean, it does suck, but I'm glad that there was actually steps put in to make sure that didn't happen again. That's really good to
Yeah.
see that there was
Mhm.
such a proactive response, or I guess not proactive because it already happened, but reactive, making sure that it never happens again. Yeah.
Likely, in my opinion, and I will say, yeah, it's not the good teams that are going to poach the kids, right? It's not the ones that have it all figured out with a great scouting system. It's going to be the desperate ones, and that's a really awful situation to go into, in my opinion. So I'm really thankful for where it is, and now I'm more experienced and will advise differently in the future. But like I said, we've built that culture of, yes, even though kids want to go pro, they might even have opportunities to be on an academy team right now, but they are like, no, I'm going to finish this year because I said I was going to.
That's awesome. Yeah. Guys, anything else you want to ask? Or Mark, anything that you wanted to bring up or plug other than because we hit the tournament and we've gone over a few different things that I know that we wanted to talk about, but anything else?
No, I mean, I'd say say if you want to give us a follow on social media, we're at UCI Esports at all the things. So please do that. If you're interested in being recruited, there'll be information here. We also hire lots of other great students. So we have interns to help with graphic design, videography, production, team management, business development, sponsor engagement, all kinds of really cool things. So there's lots of opportunities at UCI. And if you want to come to UCI as a student, make sure you apply in November. So those are things I'll plug.
Okay, great. And we'll have links for a lot of those things in the description for this episode, and we'll post them on the YouTube description as well when this VOD goes up. But I guess with that, thank you for spending the time. It's been. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Before we end, I want to know who Mark mains in League, or if you don't play League, who's your favorite champion to watch?
I've never really figured out what role I want to play in League. I really like Jhin. I suck at Jhin, but I would say Jhin if I played AD carry, Olaf if I play jungle. So I still have to figure out what role I'm going to main. Favorite champion to watch? Who's a spicy champion? Who do I get? I don't know. I think it's probably a spicy top laner like a Fiora, or no, I'll say Aurelia. I love Aurelia. She's fun to watch.
Aurelia's a good pick. Yeah.
She is fun to watch. Never fun to play against.
Skill expression. We have both our solo laners play Aurelia, so it's really fun to watch them express their skill on that champion.
Gotcha. That's super cool. Yeah, okay. Well, Sean was excited with you saying Jhin because Sean changes his role about, I'd say once every 4 hours or so. He changes his main role, and then he always ends up defaulting back to enjoying playing Jhin. So I'm sure that he appreciates that. As a jungler, I don't like facing Olaf because I play the more scaling champions. I play a lot of Lilia or other scaling tanks that Olaf can't deal with. So if you play Olaf, fine. I hope I don't meet you in game then.
Yeah. I got bullied by a 12-year-old one too many times. I stick to watching League these days.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Well, then I guess we'll wrap up here. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. It was fantastic, and we'll plug all the stuff that you had, and it's been a great opportunity, so thank you for agreeing to come on with us.
It's been fun. Thank you all so much for having me.
Yes, great talking with you.
Yep. And